Well, thank you so much, Tony, for your kind introduction. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Literally streaming you live from the future, because it's April 21st here, already down under. And I am going to take you onto a journey into the Metaverse, into the future. Because the Metaverse, we are at the dawn of the Metaverse, and it is going to change society, organizations, how we live, work, and play. So prepare yourself for a wild ride. I don't have to do the introduction because that has already been done, so let's go straight into the content. I want to start off with this quote from Clay Christensen. He said that the next big thing often starts off looking like a toy. And I think that is very much true for the Metaverse. When the first time virtual reality or the first indication of something like the Metaverse appeared was in the 1950s already. Martin Heilig, he created a device called Sensorama, which was a multi-sensory 5D theater that let the users explore New York City in the 50s. It had wind, it had the smell of pizza, the smell of cars, it had the sights, it had the sounds of the city. And you could really explore in a sort of almost digital, obviously it wasn't digital, but analog fashion, the city of New York from wherever you were. Unfortunately, Heilig was very much ahead of the pack, and he was not able to find investment for his funding for his device. So that's where it ended. Fast forward about 60 or 70 years, and now we've reached the dawn of the Metaverse. And what we now see happening is that all kinds of organizations are starting to explore what is happening in this space. And even JP Morgan, the company who a couple of years back said that Bitcoin is, I'm not sure the exact words, but something like Bitcoin is a fraud or something like that, have now stepped into the Metaverse and preparing for this immersive internet that's coming our way. And if we look at that and we see how the world is changing, it reminds me of another quote from the famous Arthur C. Clarke, who said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that is absolutely true for the Metaverse. Maybe not today, but before the end of this decade, it will certainly be the case that reality and the physical world will have merged. So, of course, before I dive into what the Metaverse is, no keynote on the Metaverse is complete without mentioning its origin. Many of you might have heard of the books Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson and the book/movie of Ready Player One, where they depict a virtual immersive world as the Metaverse. In Ready Player One, it was called the Oasis, where people would live in this virtual world because the physical reality had become so dystopian. Well, it's certainly it has certainly the potential that we will end up in a similar situation where we screw up the world and we end up in a dystopian future and we all live in virtual reality. I certainly hope that that's not going to be the case. And in this talk, I'm going to tell you how I think we can achieve that, how we can create this Metaverse that benefits every one of us. Because one thing that's for sure is certain is that the Metaverse will be used in a new way for socializing, working, learning, playing, gaming, whatsoever. It revolutionized finance, it will revolutionize consumer goods industry, manufacturing. Every industry that you can imagine will be revolutionized by this next iteration of the internet. And the Metaverse is very much like social media. You have to immerse yourself to understand it. And just like with the appearance of the internet, with the first websites, there are a lot of brands that, why do we need a website? And the same with social media, a lot of brands that, we don't need any presence on social media, mobile apps, etc. Now, a lot of brands might also think, I don't need to do anything with the Metaverse. That's not necessary for us. I beg to differ, and I think that the Metaverse is so important and will have such a big impact on the future of business and the future of society that any organization needs to understand what's happening and needs to be present in the Metaverse. And I can assure you that we are in for a wild ride in the coming 1 or 2 decades when the Metaverse will take shape. But what is the Metaverse? And does it really already exist? So that's what I want to start with. And the simplest definition that I can give you of what the metaverse is where the physical and the digital worlds are converging into so-called phygital experience, augmenting both the virtual world and the physical world. So let's unpack this a bit, because there's a lot of stuff mentioned in here. So first of all, where the physical moves into the digital world. So obviously this is related to virtual reality, among others. Yeah? Virtual reality, where you can experience an environment in a fully immersive digital way. But what's interesting is that we can now have the technology to bring the physical world into this virtual world. So, for example, using digital twins, which are exact replicas of a factory or a robot or a machine packed full of sensors so that you can interact with it in the virtual world. And your interactions and how you adjust that machine or factory will have an effect on the physical world. That's one part. But we also see that people now are meeting in the virtual world. So we bring the physical world into the virtual world as well, so you have people meeting and collaborating in this world. The second part is where the digital world moves into the physical world. And the movie you see here on the screen, you might remember this. This is Pokemon Go from a couple of years ago. And this was the first time that augmented reality really hit it big in the world. But what you see, at least what I notice, is that a lot of people think that virtual reality equals the metaverse. And while virtual reality is really important for the metaverse, it's certainly not the only channel. In fact, I think that augmented reality will have a much bigger impact on society than virtual reality. And this is simply because you can add almost infinite layers on top of the physical reality to interact with that in completely novel ways. So what we see happening is that augmented reality will be a lot bigger. Especially also because the VR headsets are still very bulky. And if you want to walk on the street in virtual reality, you can't just go out on the street with your bulky headset on your head. So whenever we will have advanced and sophisticated augmented reality glasses, or even smart lenses, which I've seen now already as well, then we'll see that augmented reality will have a much bigger impact on our society. So when the physical and the digital converge, we get a phygital environment. And I know it's not the most beautiful word, but it really explains, to me at least, what it means. And this phygital world happens to be an endless blue ocean for organizations and consumers, artists and creators, and society as a whole. Allowing to have a big impact on society for trillions of dollars. But it is important that the metaverse is not a single place as portrayed in Snow Crash or in Ready Player One, let alone one specific world. I know there are some people in the world who really try to have the metaverse be theirs, but I think we should do everything to avoid that. It's also very important to know that there's only one metaverse, just like there's only one internet. And every company that argues that they are building a metaverse is akin to a company saying that they're building an internet. So there's only one metaverse, but there are countless of experiences, virtual worlds, augmented reality applications, etc. And the metaverse is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity that could benefit humanity as a whole. And a couple of weeks ago, Citi released a report that said that by 2030, they expect the metaverse to have a positive impact on the world economy of $8 to $13 trillion. Personally, I think that is an underestimate. And I think the amount that the metaverse will have, the impact the metaverse will have on society will be a lot bigger, $15, $20 trillion or whatsoever. Simply by looking at the impact that the internet had on our global economy. But this impact on society as a whole will only appear if we build it correctly. Because if we build it the way we have built Web 2, then the returns of the metaverse will end up in the hands of a tiny elite, as has already happening with Web 2. And therefore, I think what we need is an open, decentralized, and interoperable metaverse. And I'm going to explain these terms, because I think it's important to have a clear understanding of how we can create an open metaverse that's there for us, that's there for society as a whole. And here are 6 characteristics that are part of that. And I'm going to explain each of them briefly. So the first one is interoperability. Full transferability of data and your digital assets. And that's something that we currently don't have. If you want to take your Facebook data or your TikTok followers and videos and comments away from the platform to another platform to basically start where you left off, that's not possible. Because TikTok and Meta, they own your data. Because your data is extremely valuable for them. However, in an open metaverse, what we want is that that data belongs to you. So that you own the data, you control who has access to it, and you control how and where you're going to take it. So that when you earn or win or take or whatever, get a digital asset in the form of a non-fungible token, and I'll get to that in a second, you want to know that you own that asset and that you can take that asset from one virtual world to the other virtual world. Interoperability is quite challenging. And from a technical standpoint, we even haven't been able to create interoperability from a mobile messaging perspective. Up until today, it's not possible to send a WhatsApp message to Telegram, for example, which is strange because the same thing we've managed for email. You can send an email from Gmail to Hotmail, and we see the benefits that that brings to society. So the second characteristic is decentralization, using blockchain technologies to return this control of data and assets to the user. So we need to move from a centralized approach where the big tech owns your data to a decentralized approach where you own that data and you determine who has access to the data. And blockchain technologies, together with cryptocurrencies and NFTs, are a perfect medium to enable that. The third characteristic is persistency. The metaverse will be always on and always there, unless the owner removes it. And that's very much like the physical world. If you build a building or a house in the physical world, you don't want that one day that you come back home from work and your building is gone. You want your building to stay there forever, or at least as long as it's capable of. And the same applies to the metaverse. If you build a building on a land that you've purchased, you want that house or building or whatever you've created to be there whenever you come back. And also so that your colleagues or your customers can enter in that building whenever they feel that necessary. The next characteristic is spatiality, which basically means we need to add spatial anchors to all these billions and billions of assets that will make up the metaverse. Because otherwise it becomes impossible to search and find what you're looking for. Remember, there is no Google in the metaverse yet. By the way, a very good, interesting business opportunity for those who are entrepreneurial. Because if you want to find, a mountain in a particular world, that's impossible to find at the moment. So we need to add spatial anchors to make the metaverse part of a spatial web so we can find what we're looking for in this vast immersive world. The fifth characteristic is that it will be and is community driven. Communities are absolutely key, especially because Generation Z, those born 95 to 2010, or Generation Alpha, born after 2010, they are very much known for creating communities online and interacting with each other wherever they are in the world. And any organization that wants to step into the metaverse and connect with these generations, these consumers, need to acknowledge the existing communities and need to interact with them. You need to be where they are. And you cannot, as a brand, put your own thoughts on it to a community who has been in this space already for such a long time. And you see that also happening with a lot of the NFTs that are being sold at the moment. It all revolves around having a strong community who believes in the product or the environment or the experience that you are building. And the final characteristic of an open metaverse is self-sovereignty, which basically means that we can make identity, but also reputation, personal, private, persistent, portable, and protected. And this basically means that your identity is personal, is yours, so it's all about you. It's private, you determine who has access to it. It's persistent. It doesn't go away. It cannot just be deleted by a centralized company if they don't like you anymore. It's portable. It means you can take it from one world to the other, and it's protected, meaning that it cannot be hacked. Because if our identity is going to be the main important thing within the metaverse, we want to make sure that it's ours, it's secure, and that we have full control over it. And the way I look at identity, it's very much as you see in the little graph here, is that it consists of 3 components. One is your attributes, which are your long-term attributes, such as your name, your date of birth, your medium long-term attributes, which, for example, where you live, and your short-term attributes, for example, what you dress, but also your username for a login platform. Then you have your reputation, which is are you trustworthy, and do you do what you say that you're going to do, and can people generally rely on you? And then the third component is your shadow reputation, which basically means the people you interact with that have like throw a shadow on you, whether it's positive or negative, depending on their reputation. So this identity, which is not only for people but also for organizations and also for machines, this identity has to be self-sovereign. So that you, as the person or thing or organization that created that identity, is in full control of it. And if we are able to achieve that, if we are able to achieve this open metaverse where you have full control over your data, assets, and identity, I am certain that we'll get a Cambrian explosion of identity. Because the interesting thing about the metaverse is that you can show up as whoever you want to be, how you want to be, whenever you want to be. You can socialize however you want. You can show up as a blue man with a head on fire. You can show up as a purple centaur. You can show up as Bowser or Toad from Mario Kart. It's really up to you. And I think that in the next decade, people will start to explore their identities in ways that has never been possible before. And personally, I'm very much looking forward to that, because it's a great way of finding your true identity and playing with this identity. And interestingly enough, research has shown that people will take over some of the characteristics of their digital character into the physical world. So research a couple of years ago by Belinson showed that people who joined the metaverse or virtual world as an extrovert character while being introvert in the world, after using that character in the virtual world, they showed more extrovert characteristics in the physical world. So here we see this convergence between the physical and the digital world that will also have an impact on our identity. Absolutely fascinating, I think, myself. However, what I think is very important to be aware of is for us to create an open metaverse means that it needs to be built on top of a hybrid web. Centralized but decentralized. So what do I mean with this? On the one hand, we need a decentralized metaverse where we have full control over our data, assets, and identity. And we use decentralized technologies such as blockchain and non-fungible tokens to make that happen. However, a complete decentralized metaverse is simply not possible in the next, I would say, 1 or 2 decades, because streaming hyper-realistic volumetric data over a decentralized protocol is simply impossible. It's even impossible using a centralized approach at the moment. And we can't stream hyper-realistic volumetric virtual reality data around the globe. So we need this hybrid approach where we use centralized components of streaming, so we have high compute, high bandwidth, low latency, together with a decentralized approach to have control over data, assets, and identity. But for this open metaverse, we'll obviously use Web3 technologies, the Web3 infrastructure which is building this. But it's very important to be aware of that the metaverse does not require Web3. It can perfectly exist without it. We can perfectly exist to continue to build the metaverse using Web 2 technologies in a Web 2 approach, meaning that we have closed walled gardens such as Meta that has full control over the user, their identity, and the data and assets, and take a large percentage of the sales of whatever the creators and the creatives are making. So that's very much possible. Whether we want that, that's a different question. And personally, I think we should strive for an open metaverse, because that way we'll not only fight for a bigger slice of the pie, but we'll create a bigger pie altogether that can be shared by everyone. So now that we know what the metaverse is, let's have a look at how this will change things, how it will change your business, how it will change your work or your way of socializing. And I think there are 4 ways that the metaverse will change industries and society. These are commerce, collaboration, economics, and experience. And I'm going to just discuss each of them to give you an idea of how the metaverse will impact society. First of all, commerce. When we have this Cambrian explosion of identity, when we use new avatars, it's important to be aware of that your avatar is born, so to say, naked. And of course, your avatar needs to be dressed. And this will see rise to a completely new industry called digital fashion. And the 2 examples that you see here on the screen are from the Amsterdam-based startup, The Fabricant, which creates digital fashion items that only exist in the digital world. And the interesting thing is, when you are operating in the digital world, the laws of physics no longer apply. And that means that you can come up and be a lot more creative. So you can create a jacket out of, I don't know, metal, liquid metal. Or you can create a dress that's connected to the climate. And if it's raining, the dress is dark. And if it's sun shining, the dress is gold. These are all things that become possible when we start to combine various data sources to create new experiences. And to show you what is happening in this space, here you have the virtual glass suit created by Dolce & Gabbana in 2021, which sold for $1 million. This is a digital suit. I repeat, this is a digital suit, because the company Boson Protocol paid $1 million for a suit that would only exist in the digital world. Well, that's not completely true, because in this case, Dolce & Gabbana will also make the physical suit for the CEO of the company. But the fact that someone paid $1 million for a digital fashion item shows you what's happening in this world. But that's not all. In 2021, we also saw a Gucci purse sold for 350,000 Robux, which is roughly around just over $4,000 US. And the same purse in real life cost $3,400. So you have this digital asset, which is not an NFT because it only lives on Roblox, and Roblox is a centralized platform. It has no value, it has no use other than that your avatar in Roblox can wear it and show off. It has no transferability outside of the Roblox world because you cannot take it from Roblox to Decentraland or the Sandbox, yet it's worth more than a physical one. And that shows you how this world is changing. And obviously not all items in the world, in the metaverse, will be expensive luxury items. We'll see also, just the ordinary digital fashion, which you can buy for $5 or $10. But the fact that this is happening shows that the world is changing. And when that happens, the metaverse will usher in a new form of commerce, which I call iCommerce or immersive commerce. And this will be worth billions of euros or dollars to come and potentially outgrowing e-commerce. And what iCommerce consists of are basically 2 forms. One is direct to avatar, which is, for example, digital fashion items or wearables sold as NFTs using crypto. And these items only exist in the digital world. The other item is direct to physical, which basically means physical items sold in an immersive experience, paid for either using crypto or fiat. You can imagine that you are trying a dress on or shoes for your avatar, but then those same shoes or dress is being drop shipped to your home, so both you and your avatar can wear the same thing. So a question that I want to pose for you, that I want to leave you with to think about, is how can your company facilitate iCommerce? Knowing that also fiat money will no longer be required. And that the metaverse, cryptocurrencies are what really make the metaverse go round. Something to think about during and after this presentation. The second component, how the metaverse will change society, is experience. And I already mentioned Generation Z and Generation Alpha. These are the metaverse natives. And they expect a different relationship with their brands. And recent research that I read showed that I think from Generation Z, about 52% or so, they feel the same approach in real life as with their avatar. So they have this connection with the avatar that is themselves, whether it's a digital or their physical them. And I think for the Generation Alpha, which doesn't show up in the research, this will be even more, because this generation has grown up on Roblox, has grown up in Fortnite, has thrown birthday parties during the pandemic on Roblox because they couldn't meet their friends in real life. They expect a different experience when interacting with brands. And I want to show a quote here from the famous Douglas Adams, author of The Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy. And he said that anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary, and is just a natural part of the way the world works. Anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. And anything that's invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. And remind you, I'm almost 40, so this also applies to me. The world is changing so fast at the moment, and it's very difficult to keep up for everyone. But we need to, because the world is not, these changes are not going to stop. And the metaverse is coming our way. So regardless of your age, you need to have an understanding of what the metaverse is and how it's going to impact society. And if you want to connect with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, you have to be that experience as a brand. And this is a great example of Forever 21, a well-known retail brand in America, they created this fantastic experience on Roblox where people could build their own retail stores, they could buy Forever 21 clothes as assets, but they also allowed users of Roblox to create their own digital fashion and sell that in the digital Forever 21 stores. The users were able to create and compete with who had the best retail brand. But interestingly enough, so they created this really cool experience on Roblox. But those creators who created these digital fashion items are now being created in the physical world and sold as physical clothes by Forever 21. So here we have a company, a retail brand, that creates an experience that delivers a lot of traction and media attention, receiving basically free R&D for new types of clothes, where they already know which clothes will succeed and which won't. And they can then create those clothes for the physical world and have them available in both the physical and the digital world, sharing the revenue with the creators who originally created the digital items. A fantastic experience of how in the metaverse connecting with consumers will happen. But while Roblox and also platforms such as Decentraland or Minecraft are very blocky or low polygon, so to say, before the end of this decade, we will move to hyper-realistic experiences, where consumers purchase NFTs in unique experiences with crypto. No banks will be required, no intermediaries will be required, and you can just interact directly with your consumer. But what is important for brands, for organizations, is that they have to be unique and they don't have to copy reality. An example here is Samsung's H37X store in Decentraland. What they did is you have the 837 store in New York, which is a really cool store in the physical world. But then they copied the exact same store in the digital world, which to me doesn't make sense anymore, because as I mentioned, in the digital world, the laws of physics no longer apply. So you can really use your creativity to offer a completely novel experience. And I think it's as a brand owner, you should really start to rethink your role when connecting with consumers. Now you need to create these unique virtual experiences with low entry barriers. And these can be fully virtual, as in virtual reality. They can be 2D virtual, as on Roblox or Decentraland, or they can be using augmented reality, as we see happening at the moment last week, I think, on the festival Coachella, where they had really cool augmented reality experiences. You need to participate. You need to connect with your consumers in the metaverse where they are. So you need to start playing around on these various platforms to understand what the best approach is. You need to innovate. Don't copy the physical reality, but really think out of the box. and you need to celebrate. Create these gamified rewards, create virtual goods, NFTs, to celebrate with your customers. Really look into a different approach of building this community and interacting with this community in a way that offers an experience. So my question to you is then, how can your organization connect with Generation Z and Generation Alpha? Whether this is as for your customers or in the future for your future employees. And I'll come back to that in a second. The third component is focused on economics. Because, as I just mentioned, in an open metaverse, crypto will make the metaverse go round. And cryptocurrencies will be the main method of payment. And what I think is that over the next decade, we'll see probably millions of cryptocurrencies. One cryptocurrency for each community, whether it's a very small community of a few thousand users to a large community of millions of users. And at the moment, I think we have around 15,000 or almost 20,000 cryptocurrencies. And in the years to come, this will explode because it allows every community to create a digital method of payment that is suitable for that particular community with the characteristics that focus and that are relevant for that particular community. And if this community is able to create a cryptocurrency with the right approach and with the right dynamics, then this community can grow and the cryptocurrency can become more important, becoming available on more exchanges and becoming a larger method of payment. But cryptocurrencies will be crucial. And while cryptocurrencies will be used to pay for stuff in the metaverse, NFTs will truly revolutionize the internet. And that is because non-fungible tokens allow us to truly prove digital ownership for the first time. And this has never been possible before. And the fact that we can now prove digital ownership will, what I think, kickstart the imagination age. Now, the imagination age is a theoretical age that was first coined, I think, in the 90s. It's sort of the hypothetical age after the information age, where artificial intelligence has become so prevalent that many of the people on Earth, they spend their time on being creative, on creating cool experiences, creating cool content for the others to consume. And NFTs allow us to prove the ownership of the content that's being created. So it becomes actually useful and valuable for everyone to create cool content. However, it's very important that NFTs, for them to hold value, they need to have utility. And in the past year, we have seen this massive hype around NFTs. And we've seen prices being paid for JPEGs for multi-million dollars of dollars. For example, the Beeple first 5,000 days, which I was sold, I think, for 69 million. But the interesting thing is that the owner of that picture only got that particular JPEG. He didn't get the copyright, he didn't get the IPs, and he basically can't do anything with that image except displaying it in his own home. And that's where the utility comes into place. And I have, of course, a picture of a Bored Ape for a reason, because what Yuga Labs did is they gave away the copyright and the IP that belongs to every image, every Bored Ape. And as a result, we see all kinds of fantastic experiences being built around the Bored Ape Yacht Club. We have, for example, Kingship. It's the Bored Ape band by Universal Media Group. Kingship will release new music, there will be community-based products, activations, experiences, all kinds of new ways to interact with the community. I've also read about Bored Ape restaurants, Bored Ape movies, Bored Ape whatever you can think of, because the owners of these Bored Apes actually have the copyright and the IP. And that brings value to these JPEGs. NFTs will also revolutionize the media, gaming, entertainment industry because for the first time, artists can have a direct relationship with their fans. You can sell, collectors can buy, and both will rise. The way this works is if I'm an artist, if I'm a singer, I can sell NFTs in my songs. So the more you listen to my song, the higher the price of the NFT of that particular song. And I can then also give you a share of the royalty, which is called stream to earn. So the more you listen to this music, the more me as a singer will earn, but also you as a listener will earn. It's a completely new way of connecting with consumers, and in the years to come, we'll see that that will really take off. And what these NFTs and these cryptocurrencies will bring is what I think is called economic inclusivity. Because, for example, let's have a think about a Fortnite gamer who wants to apply for a loan in today's world. So you have this gamer who has been spending, I don't know, 5 years since the start of Fortnite playing this game, is really good at it, has amassed a lot of assets within the game, has spent hundreds of hours playing the game, and then decides to apply for a loan to buy a house. And he goes to the player goes to the bank and says, well, I've got all these assets in Fortnite. I've spent, I don't know, 10,000 hours playing this game. So surely that must be worth something to apply for a loan. I can guarantee you that every bank will probably laugh at the player and will ask the player to leave quite quickly. Which to me is a terrible destruction of value. Because if these assets were interoperable, if the user playing for, Fortnite could take those assets and move them from one digital world to another virtual world, then all of a sudden these assets become valuable and the user can start to use these assets. And to show you the importance of that, I want to show you a quote of Hernando de Soto, the famous Peruvian economist. He said that with titles, shares and property laws, people could suddenly go beyond looking at their assets as they are, houses used for shelter, to thinking about what they could be, things like security for credit to start or expand the business. And the same applies for the digital world. If all of a sudden you can prove the ownership of a digital asset, you can then start to monetize it. And that is a significant paradigm shift compared to today's world. We see this happening in the developing world where, as De Soto mentions, ownership can help for people to monetize their houses. Now the entire world can create digital content and monetize it. Because if you can prove the ownership of a digital asset, you can trade it, you can sell it, you can rent it out, you can display it, you can borrow against it, you can use it as collateral. In other words, you can monetize it. Using cryptocurrencies, not fiat. That's very important to be aware of. That is possible using decentralized finance. And in the coming decade, we'll make a shift from decentralized finance to Metaverse finance, where NFTs and cryptocurrencies will forever change the way the society works. Now, some of you might have heard about decentralized finance. I assume that a small portion of you might have actually played around with decentralized finance because it's not very common practice at the moment. The objective of decentralized finance is to create a global decentralized alternative to every financial service that exists. But up until now, I think about 5 million people around the world are actually using it. That is simply because it's not very user-friendly. It's very difficult to use these technologies, to use these protocols, to actually monetize your digital assets. And once we move from decentralized finance to Metaverse finance, which basically are all the different protocols to enable financial activity between non-fungible tokens and fungible tokens, this user experience and the UI of it will become a lot better. To such an extent where it's as easy as to use DeFi and monetize your digital assets as it is to use your credit card online. So again, the question for you is, how can your company leverage Metaverse finance? How can you enable that your customers can monetize the digital assets that they create through your services? Something to think about. So then the final one that I want to discuss is collaboration, because collaboration will significantly change before the end of this decade. Because avatars can connect in the virtual world or they can meet in the physical world. And this will enable what I call work from anywhere. So once we have reached a stage where we have hyper-realistic avatars that can appear in the physical world as holographic projections, something that I will see happening towards the end of this decade, the difference between being physically present in the office or digitally present in the office will disappear. And it doesn't matter anymore whether you work from the office, whether you work from home, or whether you work from a tropical island enjoying the sunshine. And at the moment, we see that the first steps here are being created. We have virtual experiences, whether it's Microsoft Teams or Meta's Horizon World, where people can be in virtual reality and meet, collaborate, brainstorm, etc. And research has shown that meeting in virtual reality is actually a lot more intuitive for humans than meeting using a Microsoft Teams or Zoom. If there's one thing that the pandemic has shown is that Zoom fatigue, constantly looking at yourself while being in a 2D screen, is very tiring for people, because we are not made for 2D, we are made for 3D. And that's important to be aware of, that once we move to a more 3D environment, collaboration will change. Well, at the start of my talk, I briefly mentioned digital twins. Because digital twins allow us to bring them into the metaverse, into the virtual world, to connect with the physical world. And I think actually that digital twins are one of the foundational layers of the metaverse. Because once we have a digital replica of a physical device, using sensors creating data on a real-time basis, we can then start to interact with that device, whether it's using virtual reality or augmented reality. And the interactions will have a direct effect in the physical world. So this will then enable us to collaborate in 3D, on a machine or on a factory. So when we have a factory and we need to fix a machine, we no longer have to fly to the factory as an engineer to solve whatever needs to be solved, but using virtual reality or augmented reality, we can directly interact with this factory from the comfy beach chair on our tropical island. And that's only possible because the metaverse will offer this 3D environment. And as I mentioned, humans are made for 3D, not for 2D. So towards the end of this decade, we'll probably laugh at the flat collaboration tools that we have today, similar to how we now look back at the first websites, which we think are, compared to what we have today, very, very basic. And an example here is think about a hyper-realistic hybrid meeting of the future, where part of the employees are in the office and part of the employees are streaming in virtually from wherever they are in the world. Now, those people who stream in from virtual reality are being projected as hyper-realistic avatars in the physical meeting room, and those colleagues in the physical meeting room are being projected as hyper-realistic avatars in the virtual meeting room. Really completely merging the physical and digital world and sort of removing the difference between them, because both will feel and look exactly the same. So how can your organization leverage the metaverse to facilitate this cross-border collaboration? How can you enable this? How can virtual reality, augmented reality foster new ways of collaboration, new ways of co-creation with your colleagues and your customers? So to round off, I want to share with you what's the best way to start with the metaverse. Because I've explained now to you what the metaverse is. I've explained to you how we can create an open metaverse using the 6 characteristics. I've explained to you 4 ways that I think the metaverse will affect society. But how do you start with it? I think the best way is to start experimenting and to make mistakes and learn from them. And with that I mean is go to the various platforms that are out there, Decentraland, The Sandbox, Roblox, Minecraft, use augmented reality, start to build these applications to understand how they impact your organization. Make mistakes, because it's difficult, it's new, but learn from it and move ahead. Because every organization that's not stepping into the metaverse in the next, before the end of this decade will have a lot of trouble moving forward. One thing that's also important to be aware of is that there are also dangers lurking in the metaverse. I won't go into depth about this because I can talk about this probably for a couple of hours, but the metaverse will not be a safe place everywhere and for everyone. Similar to the problems that we have in the current web, in the metaverse we'll see these problems being extrapolated because of the immersive nature of the metaverse. So in the metaverse we'll collect 10 to 100 times more data. And if this data is not ours, then privacy will become an illusion. Abuse, harassment, illegal content will unfortunately thrive in the metaverse. We've already seen sexual harassment happening in the metaverse. And to our brain, something that happens in virtual reality is as real as something happening in the physical world. We'll have increased polarization and we'll have increased inequality if we don't make a metaverse that's open to everyone. So to finish off, the metaverse will really change finance, consumer industry, society as a whole. And it's important to be aware of that. Avatars, online identity, reputation will be the new way moving forward. It will create this Cambrian explosion of identity and creativity where you can be who you want to be. NFTs are much more than collectibles of JPEGs. These blockchain-enabled assets will merge the physical and the virtual worlds where you pay with crypto. We have decentralized finance, reinventing financial services, creating this new inclusive economic system that's important for your organization, regardless of the industry, to be aware of. And Metaverse finance will use NFTs to turn digital ownership into economic independence for creators. So it's important to know and understand how that's going to impact your business. The Metaverse is coming, and it's a convergence of big data, blockchain, and AI. And as we live in exponential times nowadays, it's important that you will achieve a gestalt shift when stepping into the Metaverse yourself. You need to see, you either see a duck or a rabbit, but you can't see them both at once. So you need to be able to make that shift and look at the Metaverse, look at your organization from a different lens. And if we then just very briefly look into the future, by 2035, we'll probably beam the Metaverse straight into our brains. What this means is that we'll be able to see a metaverse where we won't use any augmented reality glasses or virtual reality headsets anymore, but it will be beamed straight into our brains. And the movie that you see here is from Neuralink from last year, where they implemented a chip into the monkey pager, and this monkey plays the game ping pong with its brain. I repeat, there's a monkey playing a game of ping pong simply by thinking about it. And it's doing very, very well. And that's in 2021. So fast forward 14 years or 13 years, and I think it's very likely that a metaverse will be beamed straight into our brains. So as a final thing to ponder about, I'm going to show you a 1-minute clip that has just been released towards the end of last year. And when you look at this clip, think and know that everything that you see is digital. And then you'll see that the future is closer than you think.
Reflecting back who and what we are and the choices we make, the worlds we build. They also confront us with questions about why we want to choose this over that, why we want to make X instead of Y. Where do ideas of who we are and what we want even come from?
You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This isn't real.
What is real?
How do you define real?
For instance, I'm not even sure why I'm here. I remember waking up and thinking that I'm supposed to come here, that it was important for me to ask people, how do we know what is real? Hi, I'm Keanu Reeves. Over 20 years ago, I first played the character Thomas Anderson in the Matrix trilogy. Those films pioneered digital cinema with shots like bullet time. Back then, we talked a lot about where the digital age might take cinema and narrative. In an industry where actors have tried to remain perpetually young, we wondered about digital faces that could become immortal.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann Moss, and I played Trinity in the Matrix films.
20 years ago, we asked ourselves how long it would be before faces and bodies could be changed as easily as we change clothes.
We wondered, what would identity mean in a completely digital world?
And what would reality mean when a world we can build?
All right, so what you saw here is a part of the promotional movie, The Matrix Awakens, that you can find on YouTube as part for the new movie, The Matrix in 2021. And everything that you saw is being made digital. the humans, Keanu Reeves, everything that you saw was created digitally. So you can truly think that the future is closer than you think. Thank you.